Hello, everyone. This is Annika Hurwit. I hope you're finding me on this Go Live Facebook event that I've scheduled. I'm going to talk for a little while about what it is that makes people resilient in challenging times. And I know that these are very challenging times. Many people are frightened, worried, afraid. The picture of what's going on globally with this pandemic is changing every moment, and a lot of us are constantly watching the news and finding it helpful and then finding it overwhelming. These are very challenging times. And I've scheduled this live video because it really struck me that people who understand the principles of mind, consciousness, and thought, which is what I teach, have an advantage to navigating times like these. So I was talking with a client who is also a friend the other day, and she said, well, I'm worried. Of course I'm worried. I use what I know about the three principles, in order to feel better, but there's this low level sense of worry all the time. And I said, that's not a good idea. And she said, you mean you're not worried? And I said, I'm concerned. Of course I'm concerned, but I'm not worried. And she jokingly said, well, Annika, I think you're not worried because you're dumb. And I really understand why it looked that way to her, because I used to be a worrier. And I will bet you, if you're a worrier, that deep down, you have a belief that to worry is in some way responsible. That it means you're keeping on top of things. I have coached and helped many worriers over the 25 plus years that I've taught the principles, and that's pretty much always the case. And the thing is, it's just not true. When you worry, what it does is it wears down your mind's capacity to be resilient. It takes you out of the present. It puts you in the past or the future. And it has you thinking about things in ways that cause stress but are not productive. So all the research shows that a calm mind is a resilient mind. A calm mind has the capacity to be more responsive than reactive. When your mind is calm, your IQ goes up. When it's stressed, which it becomes from worry and anxiety, your IQ goes down. When your mind is calm and present, you have big picture thinking. Thank you for all these wonderful hearts and smiles. When your mind is stressed, you have tunnel vision. This is why in a crisis, nature has designed us so our minds instantly become calm, because that gives us the best chance of surviving the crisis. It makes the highest quality thinking available to you. When firefighters rush into a building, I've never been a firefighter, but I can bet you they're not going, I'm so freaked out about this. They're probably very calm. In fact, the firefighters that I've worked with, that's the reason they love firefighting, is because they become so automatically and naturally present. And that's a very pleasurable experience, even in the midst of a disaster. So I was coaching someone yesterday who was stressed out. His business has all gone virtual, and they may be losing business. They don't know yet. And I was helping him get his bearings back. And at the end of the session, he said, well, how are you doing? And before I realized what I was saying, I said, I'm doing great. I'm having a great time. And then I realized how strange that sounded to him. And I said, I don't mean any disrespect, but I'm so grateful to know what I know, because it's helped my mind go from a worrying mind, like my friend slash client, that kept things on the back burner all the time, and my mind would be fraying at them and picking away at them, so that I was often in a very stressed state and needing to recover through meditation or hiking, the ways most people try to recover when they're in a perpetual stress state. And how my life evolved 25 years ago when I learned this, into being in a calm and present state and allowing my mind to realign with nature's design to function perfectly, which means that when I need to think about the pandemic, I do. And because I'm not worrying, I have more clarity to bring to it. It's more obvious to me when to sanitize after I've touched something, or to go to the store at a certain time and what to load up on. And I'm guessing, because nobody knows how long this is going to go on, or if the grocery stores are going to run out of supplies, and if so, besides toilet paper, which I'm not concerned about personally, but let's say food, when and what will they run out of? We have no way of knowing this. Now, that uncertainty also makes people very anxious until they learn about the three principles and the single paradigm, which I'm going to talk about in a little while. Because what do you do with the unknown? How do you plan? How do you protect yourself? But again, when your mind is restored to nature's design, which is to function perfectly like everything in nature, you have more access to your instinctual nature, to your little prompts that come and say, maybe you should look into what would be good to stock up on during a time when people might not be able to get food. So I did, and because I live 40 minutes from Whole Foods, I was on a trip last week, and on the way home I stopped at Whole Foods, and I got some fresh food that I could freeze and some canned goods. And so it's just an example. It's that a person who doesn't worry actually not only is responding well to this pandemic, but maybe responding better. Because when your mind is continually stressed, there's no room for those fresh ideas, those little responsive taps that say, now, this would be a good time. So I want to talk a little bit about how you get there. And for those of you who know about the three principles and the single paradigm, this will be a review. For those of you who don't, please just follow along as best you can. And there is a 30-minute video on my website, AnnikaHurwitz.com, that will review everything I say today, because it can be a lot, even though it's quite simple in content. It's endlessly deep in its implications, and most people have to hear it a number of times, usually about 8 times, before it becomes intuitive. So I'm just saying, you have endless resources available, but I'm going to do my best to talk with you a bit about that now in a way that I hope you'll find helpful. So in the 1970s, a man named Sydney Banks had a profound realization about principles that explain the human experience from soup to nuts, everything we experience. And those principles are mind, which is a formless energy that has a deeper intelligence, fires everything up in life. Thought, which is our mental capacity to have thought activity, that formless energy. And consciousness, which is the principle that allows us to feel what we think. So in every moment as you go throughout your day, you're feeling, you're thinking. Now this may sound familiar, but what sets this apart is that it's not positive thinking. It's not about thinking negatively or in, let's say, an anxious way, as we're talking about today, and then cleaning it up after the fact by trying to think good thoughts or positive thoughts, or reframe your thoughts, what they teach in cognitive behavioral therapy. This is about understanding how it works. It's going behind the curtain, like in The Wizard of Oz, and seeing what's giving rise to your experience. And when you see that, a whole lot of things start to change for people. The first thing is that's really fascinating is that when people are introduced to principles, you instantly get calm. And that's one of the things that is endlessly fascinating to me. So when I tell people, this is where your experience is coming from, inevitably, people's minds settle down. And why is that? Well, I think it's the same reason that if you go out on a clear night in a non-urban area where the sky is dark enough for you to see the stars, and you look up, there's a sense of awe and also calm. I think it's because we're instinctual beings, and because we are nature, we are made like nature, we are nature. When we're reminded of the principles that give rise to our experience, it settles you right down into your truer, deeper self. And when you touch base there, you know you're home and you know you're safe. And here's why. Because if it's our thoughts that we're feeling moment to moment, that means that nothing on the outside can harm you, and nothing on the outside can help you. And what I mean by that is that no matter what happens, you will feel your thoughts about what's happening. So just to demonstrate with this pandemic, I like to, I'm relatively new to Instagram, and I love humor, and so I follow Trevor Noah a lot. I think he's very funny, and sometimes I'll also listen to Ellen from The Ellen Show. And this morning I opened up Instagram, and there was Ellen looking very stressed, and she was out on a walk, and she said, "What am I doing? I'm doing what everybody's doing. I'm feeling antsy and I'm feeling anxious." And I thought, well, I'm not feeling antsy or anxious. And then I opened up one of Trevor Noah's posts, and it's not that he's not taking this seriously, he's taking it very seriously, and he's finding times to make humor out of it. And this isn't to say, one is wrong or one is right. The point is the pandemic is the same. They both know about it. But what they're feeling is they're thinking in the moment about it. Now, why is this helpful? It's helpful because when you realize this, your brain is designed to help you. It is built into us to help us on our evolutionary path. So, but we have the free will to direct our minds in different directions. So if you're saying to your mind, I'm anxious and it's because of the pandemic. I'm anxious because what if I run out of food? I'm anxious, what if I get sick or a loved one gets sick? Your mind, it's kind of like a dog. You're saying, go fetch, I'm upset, and the reason is out there. Now, what happens when we point our minds in the wrong direction and in inaccurate representation of reality? Because your minds are designed to bring you back to equilibrium, your mind is going to start to spin. Because if it can be running out of food, or getting sick, or the weather, or whether you're having a fight with a friend, or whether things are going well with work, it can be on the level of logic, everything could put a feeling in you. That duck behind me, the computer, you all watching. And if that were true, we would all be basket cases because everything in life would be controlling us. I mean, when you look it in the eye, it obviously makes no sense. The brain functions on the level of logic. So when you point it in an illogical direction, that feelings are coming from something that's not thought, it's going to start to spin. And what it's doing is it's manufacturing more and more thinking, trying to bring you back to equilibrium, but it can't because it's pointed in the wrong direction. Because you feel everything you think. And if you don't know that yet, if you're new to the principles, just run the experiment. Walk around and see what happens when you think loving thoughts. Do you feel love? When you think angry thoughts, do you feel anger? It's a system in place that always works the same way for every human being in every part of the globe. So you're feeling all those stress thoughts. You're feeling your mind spin. You're getting more and more stressed and anxious. And guess where it looks like it's coming from? It looks like it's coming from whatever you're thinking about. The pandemic, Italy. Trevor Noah showed a clip this morning of the Italian. The police are going around shouting at people to get back in their homes, and they're going around performing for people outside of their homes so they'll have a better time. So the Italian police are playing guitar and singing and performing. It's so endearing. So that is what this diagram is all about. It's about the fact that every human being knows that you feel you're thinking in the moment. Or most people do at this point, there's just so much talk about the power of thought. But we all get pulled into the illusion that we're feeling something that's not thought. And that's true for every human being, no matter how long you've been learning this or teaching this. Me too. But just like there's a set of feelings to alert you when you lose your physical balance, when you're out of alignment with gravity, like stress and fear, and there's a set of feelings to alert you when you're in balance with gravity, like calm and security, there's a set of feelings to alert you when you're in the illusion that something that's not thought is putting a feeling in you, which is being out of balance with the psycho-spiritual principles that nature has put into place for our psychological balance and our spiritual evolution. So when you feel anxious, frightened, insecure, it means you're in the illusion. And there's nothing wrong with that. For whatever reason, it's built into the human experience. I think it's part of our evolution. I think if it never happened, we would not be growing in the same way that we do. Every time you have the realization that that's what's going on, it's an insight. And insights are what change people. They are what clears the cobwebs from your brain and your unconscious of old thought patterns that may have been running for decades. And when you realize you're what we call outside in about something, in the illusion that something that's outside you is the cause of your psychological life. And you realize insightfully, oh no, I feel my thoughts in the moment. You awaken to a thought pattern it's often like a nuclear bomb has just been set off, or a lightning bolt. Those thoughts are destroyed, and often thought patterns that may have plagued you for decades begin to disappear or disappear completely. And so the psychological freedom that this paradigm, these three principles discovered by Sydney Banks and the paradigm that they reveal, is extraordinary. It's an extraordinary gift that's been given to us on our planet at this time. And I feel so honored to be able to share them with people like I'm sharing them with you right now. So I think at this point, I want to say a couple of other things, and then I want to open it up to questions, or anybody that has questions or would like some help. Okay. The more that you work with this, I'm sure there are places either on my website or elsewhere, or you can ask me and I'll send you a copy of this diagram. By putting, let's say, pandemic on the right side, it looks like my feelings are coming from the pandemic. How do you feel? Anxious, frightened, insecure. Pandemic on this side. What happens if you realize insightfully that you're feeling, you're thinking moment by moment as you go throughout your day about this pandemic? And if you shift back into reality, back into alignment with how your brain works, there will be an instant calming, an instant settling. And what happens is as you get inside out on a regular basis over time, your mind begins to restore itself to the design that we all came into this world with, which is a grounding in the present and the ability to visit your database as needed, your very valuable computer part of your brain that has stored your ability to speak your language or languages and all of the skills you've learned, and then to return to the present when it's no longer needed. There's a prompt, there's a sense of being tired, and your mind comes back to the present. And so what I see with people in this pandemic who are well grounded in the principles is you begin, I would say, to learn that when things are rough, it's time to listen. So you enjoy your life as best you can. I'm so grateful to be in a lovely home and in a rural area where it's safe to go outside and to have my work, and I am very fortunate to have a lot of my work be virtual. To think about what's going on throughout the day, and is there anything more I need to do to protect myself or my daughter? Am I giving her the right suggestions? Because at 19 I can't tell her what to do. Essentially to and then to return to that place of calm, which is a place of listening. Presence and listening are the same thing. It's being open to the moment and the messages that the moment might have in store for you. Whether that's personal, go to the grocery store, or impersonal. Like the thought that came to me at the end of last week, which was, there's a lot of people suffering, Annika. You should offer your services and try to help. Because I know something that can really help people. And I'm very happy to give my services away at this time to anyone who needs them, who can't afford them. Because what are we in life for except to love one another and help one another and be part of a global community? Just trying to think if I want to say, so as you get grounded in the present and you move into that listening mode, you suffer less, is really what I wanted to say. And also, I think, very importantly, it doesn't matter how long you're caught up in a thought habit that is making you suffer. Because behind that habit is an infinite world of love and a consciousness in place that is never altered, and that your mind restores itself to as soon as you allow it to. And this is why most people, no matter how stressed, when you do your favorite activity, whether it's art or music or cooking or when you work out, or you experience a calm and a sense of well-being. And that's intact. And before I understood this, I thought that was a break from real life. And as soon as I was done, I'd go back to what I thought real life was, which was worry. But once you understand this, you realize that every time you tap into those moments, that's gold. And you want to encourage your mind, which, like I said before, it's like an obedient dog, to rest there, play there, as long as it possibly can. And that, in that encouragement from you, will help your mind because it's developed these habits because you unwittingly directed it to. That's the bad news. But the good news is, doesn't matter how long you've had them or how severe they are, right behind those mental habits is this ocean of love, insight, well-being, just waiting to break through the dam. And you can bring that dam down. You can break a hole in that dam simply by looking in the direction of where your feelings are coming from moment by moment. Because again, as soon as your brain is reminded of that truth, it's going to start dropping the thinking that's causing you harm about this pandemic, and keeping in mind the pandemic is very real, but you want to be able to approach it with the best possible thinking available to you, the best possible level of consciousness available to you, so that you can not only be resilient for yourself, but you can be helpful to others. Okay, so, I'm ready for questions, but this is the first time, well, it's the second time I've done a live, but the first time I've wanted to set it up in a way that would allow people to interact with me, and I actually don't know how to do it. So, let's see here. Well, thank you for sending the hearts. I really appreciate it. I think that there is a way for people to interact, but I'm not entirely sure how that works. So thank you, Emily. So Emily's saying that was beautiful. Actually, if you want to write a question on the side where it says write a comment, I can respond to that, and then I'll brush up. I did try to brush up on the Facebook Lives beforehand, but I guess I only learned so much. Anybody have a question? Feel free to write it in the comment box, and I'll wait a few minutes. And if there's no questions, then we'll just meet again next week at this same time. Okay. So I guess I'm supposed to remind you to subscribe to live notifications so you're alerted each time I go live. I think that there is a way to download this recording, and I'm going to do my very best to do that, so it'll be available for people who weren't able to join today. And I'll try to figure out how to interact with people for next time, but if not, feel free to email me with any questions you might have. Annika at AnnikaHurwit.com. And if you want to learn more about the principles, you could go to my website, watch that 30-minute video, or just Google my name. I've got a bunch of videos on YouTube as well. I really hope that you have a good week and that you're able to experience more calm and to understand that well-being is your birthright, and there's no reason not to experience it during a pandemic. Because for most of us, you wouldn't be on this live call right now if you were very sick or needing to attend to someone who was very sick. So you have many moments throughout the day that you can enjoy. And that enjoyment actually shores up your brain and makes you better able to handle the challenges of this extremely challenging time. And to handle them in a good way, and maybe with humor, and with that resiliency, we're able to, our cup runneth over, we're able to help our neighbors, we're able to share our masks or gloves or anything, or food or anything that we have that we might have a little bit extra of, or to have the mental wherewithal to have it occur to you to check in on a neighbor who might be alone, or reach out to a friend who might need some support. These are the gifts of living in well-being. They make you more responsive to the pandemic and more resilient, more able to handle the challenges that come your way, and more able to help others in need. So Emily, I'm looking at your comment. Yeah, people, Emily is saying a lot of people are upset with their spouse going to work or to the store and not staying home. Boy, that's, it's so moment by moment and case by case, Emily, is what I would say. I think, again, it's so important to be able to find your calm so that you can listen to what your wisdom and common sense are saying about your spouse going to the store or to work. And then when something comes to you, and again, those of us in this community learn to get better and better at noticing thoughts that show up freshly, because they tend to have more intelligence behind them and be more trustworthy. And often they're just common sense. And so when one of those thoughts comes to you when you're doing the dishes or in the shower or wherever they show up for you, pay attention to it. And it might be that your spouse is fine, and it might be that this might be something to say to your spouse that might help them take necessary precautions, right? Because it's, you know, it's not one size fits all. There are age groups that are much more vulnerable than others. And that, of course, the news on that keeps changing. So and of course, underlying health conditions play into whether someone would make that decision. So it's so important that we can find our quiet and listen for the thoughts that come to us there. And that becomes a way of life, and we need that. We need to know what thinking we can trust, because that's how we guide ourselves through life and how we try to interact insightfully with our loved ones, whether it be your spouse, your children, your friends. That's really the greatest gift that we give the people we love, is trying to respond insightfully and not reactively. So I hope that that's helpful. And feel free, Emily, to send me more or questions. Anyone is welcome to. I really love to be able to help anyone that I possibly can with the well-being that I enjoy, that gives me a little bit of a surplus psychologically that I really want to support others with. So, haven't seen any other questions yet. Thank you all. I'm sending love to all of you, and it's my fervent wish that you will find that ocean of love and well-being and wisdom that lies behind any anxiety you're experiencing at this time. And I hope to see you next week. Bye-bye for now.